Okay, hello everybody. Nice little task for you during this week where we're going to design a Christmas font, okay? So, you've all got access to the resource that I sent out via Google Classroom. What you can do to start off with then, just get us used to going nice and straight lines, mark out your 1 centimeter or 10 millimeter border using a ruler. So I've already done the dots on my page. So you've got a nice crisp border with a nice sharp pencil, okay? So make sure that you've got a little, I don't know, empty yogurt pot to the side of you that you can constantly sharpen your pencil with. So you'll see I've got a little empty mint tin that I put my sharpenings into. And then I can make sure that I've got a sharp pencil throughout the task. Okay, so we're going to start off by drawing a couple of parallel lines, okay? Now you can mark down from the surface, so you can measure the distance coming down from the top line that you draw. Or you can do it by eye, but you need to make sure that it's parallel. So I'm going to start off by drawing what's called the cap height. This is going to be the top line for my capital letter, okay? Then I've got what's called the baseline. So this is basically the bottom of the majority of my capital letters. So if I just demonstrate that quickly, if I did a capital M, I would be going straight to the top and down to the bottom like so. Hopefully you can see that. I've done it fairly light. Okay, so that's the top, got the cap height, and I've got the base line. Okay, for this task, you don't really need to draw this line, but this is what's called the ascender height. So if you were drawing, as you can see on the resource that I've sent you, something like an F, you can go above this cap height. I don't tend to do that when I'm drawing or designing a font, okay? But something that I do use is the descender height. So if I was doing a lowercase y, I would go down to this line. Okay, I've done that a little bit close. Again, another line that you can include if you're doing lowercase letters is something called the X height. So if I did a lowercase x, my X would go in there if it's lowercase. And if I did a Y, for example, I went down, you see I haven't left much room there to do the Y, so probably need to have this descender height a little bit lower. Okay, so let's just try then and give you a little bit of tips. So I'm going to draw my cap height and my baseline, and I'm going to do everything in capitals as a starter task. Okay, and I will draw the X height as well, just in case I decide to do some lowercase. I'm not going to bother with my descender height at the moment because I don't foresee many lines going below, and when I do go below, I'm going to do it a little bit more freehand, okay? So let's just demonstrate how I can do this. So if I did my M, I'm always touching the top, and if I choose to do lowercase now, lowercase, so I'm using these lines help me. So with my Y, I'm going to take up all of the X height, and then I'm going to go freehand then to do the bottom of the Y, so the descender. And then for the C, I'm going to hit the top again of the cap height. Nice big C. Coming down, remember the X height. I'll try and keep the R consistent with the one that I've done before. Okay, now, I haven't left enough room to go across the side, but that's no problem because as you're just designing the typeface or the font, you can use other areas of your page to come up with the remaining letters. Okay, so I've just done something there a little bit more freehand. Now, what you can now do is add, to give it a little bit of depth, and if I wanted to make this look as if it was maybe a bit inky and a bit freehand, I'm going to just go around and just try to give it a consistent thickness. Okay, so that's one method of creating a font. If you wanted to try to do it more freehand. Okay, just demonstrate another technique, probably something a bit more similar to what has been used on the Google Slide resource. So I've got my cap height and I've got my baseline. I'm going to do this now all in caps, so I don't need to worry about any of the other lines at this stage. So if I wanted it again, do an M. I'm going to now use my ruler to come up with something a little bit more straight. So if I just make a square to start off with, okay? Now I can make an M, I can make any letter out of a square. So if I just demonstrate, if I take a chunk out there, and a chunk out there, could be a little bit thicker on this side, but we can work on that. And I take one chunk out there. So that is my M. Now what I can now do is just choose to add little radiuses just to soften it up a little bit. If I wanted to play around with the proportions, so if I wanted to make one side a little bit thicker, one side a little bit narrower, and so on, or even add an italic lean into it, I can use the same technique. So if I wanted to add italic, so I'm trying to keep this square but the two lines parallel, and again I'm just going to take out the section. I'm just going to lightly go over it with a pencil first to check that I'm happy with it, and then I can go over with a ruler to show it up. So there's my E now in italic. So if you wanted to start off with something sort of less Christmassy, now what you can now do is just add maybe some Christmas elements, so whether that's a snowflake or something that you might have seen that I've done in news and announcements, where you can add maybe some Christmas accessories. So I don't know how good this Christmas hat is, but notice how I'm just going over it fairly lightly first of all, and then once I've found something that I like the look of, I can then go over it with my pencil. So try and use your pencil faintly, and that's the same when you're developing your font, the same when you're drawing, the same when you're drawing a product, if you're doing product design, and then go over the lines that you want to keep. So what I'd like to see, as is the case on the Google Slides, you've got a nice demonstration of a font there. If you want to have a look on Google Images to come up with some inspirational fonts. But I'd like to see, first of all, a development of a Christmas font, keeping with the Christmas theme. And then this final task, so task 5, is looking at maybe repurposing some material, so anything that you've got lying around the house, something clean that you've got in the recycle bin perhaps, to make your Christmas card. So your Christmas card doesn't have to be a conventional Christmas card. If you've got an Amazon box, or I don't know, it could be a cereal box, and you want to somehow decorate it, so one side of the cereal box, the inner side, will be a nice clean face. You could look at sticking those two faces together so that you've got a nice, crisp, clean card to start with your base material. Okay, so Christmas font, go through the tasks on the Google Slide, and if you've got any questions, please contact me on Google Classroom. If I don't see you, have a very Merry Christmas.